The land we are standing on today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe and the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Good evening, Scarborough. Welcome to our Sun Councillor Forum. My name is Ron Parkinson. I'm co-founder and spokesperson for Sun, which is Scarborough United Neighborhoods, which began 3 years ago and consists of volunteer residents who are passionate for their respective Scarborough neighborhoods. We're nonpartisan and committed to sharing information. The volume of information has progressed significantly, from sharing community events to increasing numbers of civic events, from elections to continuous development consultations, upzoning, bylaws, etc. Our city is made up of electoral wards to which each councillor is accountable for. However, Scarborough is a bigger picture with many, many diverse neighborhoods, and we ask our councillors to be collectively supportive for all of Scarborough. What makes our city special is our diversity and inclusiveness. However, many Scarborough residents who are property, home, and small business owners and taxpayers are generally feeling left out of the decision-making process, frustrated by the lack of meaningful consultations and concerned with being ill-informed on a timely basis. This is also reflected by resident and community leaders across our city. As of right is wrong, one size does not fit all, and residents need to see significant improvements for a transparent and clear and timely communication. It's not just our councillors, but with our city staff communication process to our councillors. This is an opportunity for the 18 Scarborough community residents from across the 6 Scarborough wards. They represent thousands of residents and will share their concerns and suggestions on a range of topics. We also want to ensure a respectful and informative environment for everyone, and it will not involve discussion, debate, or decisions in this forum. The priority is not about what we want, but what we need. And we need all Scarborough councillors to work together to echo what Scarborough needs. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Scarborough councillors and their staff. That's the biggest one you've got. and their staff observers who have made this time to participate. So we don't have any of them all here, but we'll go through the roll. For Ward 20 Southwest, Scarborough Southwest, is Perthy Candival. His staff observer is Adrian Mulder. Ward 21, Michael Thompson is not available due to a conflict of time and appointments. His staff observers are Waldane Hackett and Michaela Lewis. Ward 22, Agincourt, Nick Mantis has asked Linda Zhu to participate as an observer. Ward 23 North, Jamal Myers, has Cameron Stewart as an observer. Ward 24, Paul Ainsley is out of the country, and Antoinette DeNovo is the observer. Ward 25, Rouge Park, Ethan Shan, Abraham Amiuli. Do I have everyone correct? Great. Okay, so now the agenda format. First of all, thanks to James and Jared and James from Doyle Media, who have volunteered to record this forum and will be shared by both the residents and the councillors later. The 18 speakers will have 4 minutes each to speak. Tamara is the timekeeper, and she has the card. If it's yellow, 30 seconds left. If it's red, time out. And I don't want you to cross her, okay? Each councillor would then have an opportunity to speak up to 4 minutes. All participants and guests will be respectful. Statements that are racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, or discriminate against individuals will not be tolerated. We will now begin with the speakers portion of the forum. We've asked for 2 speakers to come forward. That would be Agincourt Services with Lee and Highland Creek, Joy. And then after we'll go through the list as we have a lot. So Joy, you can come up here just to be ready, and I'll hand this over to Lee right now, who's from AGINCOURT Services.
Good job, Ron.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, councillors, community leaders, fellow Scarborough residents. Welcome to the AXA Community Services here at Dorset Park Hub, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I come to you, yes, as Lee Soda, the Executive Director of AXA Community Services, but I am also a Scarborough resident. I live in Scarborough AGINCOURT, and it's my pleasure to be here and speak as a resident at this forum. As the Executive Director of AXA Community Services, every day our staff and volunteers are on the front lines across Scarborough, working alongside with residents who are doing everything right, working, caregiving, contributing, and yet are being left behind by systems that were really never designed with equity at their core. I want to speak about what it is that we are seeing every day. In North Scarborough, the lack of accessible and affordable childcare has reached a breaking point. Parents, particularly mums, are being forced to choose between employment and caring for their children. Many are on wait lists for months, even years. For working families already living from paycheck to paycheck, unlicensed care or informal arrangements become the only option. This is not simply a family issue. It is an economic development issue. It's a gender equity issue, and it's a poverty issue. When parents cannot access childcare, they cannot access opportunity. At the same time, we're witnessing the slow erosion of our social fabric. Cuts to social services and community-based supports have a cumulative effect. Mental health supports are stretched, settlement services are overwhelmed, youth programming is under-resourced, preventative services, the very services that keep people stable, are often the first to be reduced and the hardest to be restored. The result is greater isolation, greater vulnerability, and greater strain on emergency systems. Here at AXA, we see the human consequences of these policy decisions every day. Food insecurity among the working poor is no longer episodic. It is constant. We are serving families where both parents are employed and still cannot afford groceries at the end of the month. Seniors are rationing medication to pay for food. Newcomer families are skipping meals so that their children can eat. Our food security initiatives have expanded dramatically in recent years, including the startup of a food center that serves over 5,000 households every single month. Culturally responsive food hampers, mobile distributions, and partnerships with local groups. But let me be clear, and I genuinely believe this. Food banks are not a solution to poverty. They are a symptom of it. What we need are systemic responses to systemic problems. Affordable housing in Scarborough is increasingly out of reach. Market rents continue to rise while wages continue to stagnate. Deeply affordable units are scarce. Supportive housing, which includes embedded mental health, addiction, and social supports, is insufficient to meet the needs of the families. Families are doubling up. Individuals are living in precarious and overcrowded conditions. Some are one unexpected expense away from homelessness. Housing is not just shelter, it is stability, it is health, it is dignity. I gotta move fast because that yellow card came up. Scarborough is vibrant, it's diverse and full of possibility, but possibility must be matched with policy. Compassion must be matched with commitment. The residents we serve are not asking for charity. None of us are here asking for charity. We in this room are asking for fairness, for opportunity, and a city that works for all. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. And now we have Joy from Highland Creek.
And who's next, Ron? Who's next?
Oh, yeah.
Who's next in the chair?
Misha, come around this way.
My name is Joy Lowen, and I am the president of the Highland Creek Community Association. The Highland Creek Community Secondary Plan is not aspirational. It is adopted policy intended to guide development decisions. It prioritizes preserving neighborhood character, maintaining compatible infill, and protecting residential areas defined by detached homes on spacious, well-treed lots. It directs intensification to appropriate locations and establishes built form, massing, and transition as core evaluation criteria. Yet approvals continue to advance that appear inconsistent with those provisions. When secondary plan direction is minimized or overlooked, public trust erodes and neighborhood stability is incrementally lost. Residents should not have to monitor and challenge applications to ensure adopted policy is followed. I am asking Council to reinforce accountability so secondary plans are treated as binding direction in zoning and permit evaluation, not selectively applied reference material. This concern is inseparable from tree canopy protection. Toronto's urban forest is critical infrastructure. Mature trees reduce heat, filter pollution, support biodiversity, and strengthen climate resilience, benefits that cannot be replaced within planning cycles or budgets. Council's 40% canopy commitment cannot be achieved if mature trees continue to be lost through redevelopment pressure. Bylaw review and stronger penalties are positive steps, but bylaws alone are insufficient. Tree preservation must be embedded into everyday planning decisions. As densification accelerates, redevelopment often produces disproportionate canopy loss, especially in low-rise neighborhoods where mature trees are concentrated, like Highland Creek. Housing growth and environmental stewardship cannot be framed as competing priorities. Development flexibility must not translate into avoidable canopy loss. Protecting existing mature trees must be treated as a non-negotiable component of responsible city building. I also want to address the impacts of revised parking requirements and permit parking exclusions tied to new development. Reducing vehicle reliance is a reasonable policy objective. However, applying uniform assumptions about transit accessibility across all communities is not evidence-based planning. In Highland Creek, access to major transit infrastructure is limited. Vehicle ownership is not optional. It is necessary for employment, caregiving, and daily mobility. At the same time, densification and multi-tenant housing are increasing without corresponding parking capacity. The result is chronic strain on street availability, safety concerns, and declining neighborhood function. This effectively transfers infrastructure shortfalls onto existing communities. Parking policy should not offload planning gaps onto residents. I urge Council to reassess standards through a geographic, context-sensitive lens, evaluating cumulative impact, reconsidering minimums where appropriate, and aligning requirements with transportation reality rather than policy assumption. Finally, I want to address the resident experience with the 311 system. This is not a criticism of frontline staff. It is a system design issue. Requests marked closed often indicate internal transfer rather than resolution, leaving residents without clarity or confidence in outcomes. Repeated follow-up calls waste time and resources while providing limited transparency. I am asking Council to ensure adopted planning policy is consistently applied, to embed meaningful tree preservation into development decisions, and implement parking standards grounded in geographic reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. And Nita, come on up here and have a chair. This is Amisha.
Hi, my name is Misha. I'm from the Scarborough Junction community. Welcome, everyone. And I like that idea of entrenching things that are in the secondary plans, because that would help our cause. Right now, I'd like you to imagine 100 kilometers of off-street biking and hiking trail network that would connect local neighborhoods, all Scarborough wards, and the entire city of Toronto. Imagine that connectivity, active transportation, recreational, health, tourism, and economic benefits of a Connect Toronto trail that links Scarborough to the entire city. 90% of this trail network already exists. and only several kilometers of gaps need to be filled to make a continuous route. The biggest gap is in Scarborough Southwest. The 3-kilometer Scarborough West Scarborough Rail Trail is a missing link in what would be a 25-kilometer off-street active trail from Lake Ontario to Rouge National Park via the Don Valley Trail and the Meadoway, connecting all of Scarborough to the downtown core. The Scarborough Junction community is asking Scarborough councillors to come together, support the West Scarborough Rail Trail, and give tens of thousands of residents off-street access to the Meadoway and the Don Valley Trail. The West Scarborough Rail Trail runs from south of Warden Station to Kennedy Station via the old historic GECO, Bomb Girls, Railbed, and Bridge, and then follows a hydro corridor and CN Rail line. The historic GECO Bridge over St. Clair, adjacent to Warden Station, is the critical centerpiece for this. The West Scarborough Rail Trail was first proposed over 50 years ago by U of T graduate students who envisioned a trail from Warden Subway Station to the zoo. 2005-2006 bylaws and recommendations were passed at City Council, specifically naming the bridge to connect neighborhoods north and south of St. Clair. It's in the Wardenwood secondary plan. The last 3 councillors have endorsed it. Our mayor endorses it, and it's requested by local residents. This legacy trail is now threatened by TTC plans to build a 2-train pocket track to park 2 empty trains on the bridge, on a historic bridge, and overnight. And this is a minor operational issue for the TTC with multiple solutions that do not involve using the bridge, the historic bridge and rail bed. There is no alternate off-street route for the WSRT, and this has been affirmed by City Transportation in the recent feasibility report, where they state in their own words, I quote, "Without the bridge, a direct connection between the lands north and south of St. Clair, as recommended by the Wardenwood secondary plan, is not feasible." They've said that. The trail doesn't work without the bridge. So we have to weigh whether we want 2 empty trains parked overnight on the historic GECO Bridge and rail bed, or if we want an active transportation corridor and ribbon of recreational green space from Lake Ontario to Rouge National Park, used by thousands of local residents to enhance recreation, connectivity, and health. The answer for me is clear. We need your help in reserving the GECO Bridge and rail lands for the West Scarborough Rail Trail as intended, helping TTC find alternatives for their train parking lot needs, and advancing the WSRT project to completion. We ask for your support in promoting the WSRT and advancing the project, connecting with city staff, passing a resolution at Scarborough Council to support its creation, and ultimately voting for it at City Council. Scarbarians are great vintners. They produce a great wine. We lack transportation services. Downtown has more recreation centers and rinks. Our taxes go up and services go down. Other parts of the city have rail trails and Scarborough doesn't. It's time for Scarborough to stop whining too late and adopt the Scarborough roar. Let's roar, Scarborough, and demand the creation of the West Scarborough Rail Trail with the GECO Bridge and rail bed as envisioned over 50 years ago. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Misha. And next up is Nita, and Olora is coming up next. Olora?
Hello, my name is Nita Goswami. I am a long-time resident. I'm a long-time resident of WOBURN, and I am here representing WOBURN Local Residence Table. WOBURN Local Residence Table was initially formed in 2019 with funding and support from PSNS, and we are made up of a diverse group of resident leaders living, studying, or working in and connected to other residents in resident leaders in market rental apartments, condominiums, Toronto community housing, and single dwelling homes in WOBURN and surrounding communities. Through the pandemic and since the first shooting death of one of our students at OpenCI, in 2020, and again in 2022, when another youth was shot in front of the school, we have been focusing on creating and advocating for safe and welcoming spaces, especially for our youth, seniors, women, and families. We are grateful for our city grants that we were able to access as a grassroots group. We are also grateful for the support and partnerships with schools, city staff, local agencies, local businesses, police services, TCH, and church groups. They made it possible for us to provide opportunities to hold events in parks, school grounds, community centers, and public spaces. Unfortunately, it is now becoming more challenging to have access to free spaces, and these grants, because of the competition for them, it's hard to access. Despite resident efforts and the efforts of all our community partners, gun violence, intimate partner violence, homelessness, traffic safety, and bylaws infractions, just illegal use of fireworks in parks, littering, and excessive noise continues to threaten the well-being of the community. Added to this is the constant struggle for families and youth to find all year around accessible, welcoming, and safe programs within walking distance of our homes. There are several 30 to 40-story condos and multi-dwelling units slated in Markham Road and elsewhere between 401 to Eglinton in the next few years. Because of the high cost of housing and our location near Centennial College and UFT, we know that these units will inevitably increase the number of renters in our community. We are concerned that this development pressure will strain our community infrastructure, push out small essential businesses like grocers, drugstores, and medical offices, and strain our schools and green spaces that are already lacking the resources to support the current population. For WOBURN, we urge you to prioritize operating and funding programs in our community centers like Centennial, Curran Hall, Cedarbrook, and Scarborough Village, so they can be equipped with gymnasium, youth hubs, and community meeting spaces that will conduct programs year-round. Some of our much-needed after-school and summer programs located in our schools, such as Layup and Lifted Literacy Leadership programs that have served kindergarten to high schoolers, may soon disappear from our local schools because of the cost of permitting. The school space is too prohibitive. We need more affordable commercial spaces under the new condos that will nurture local independent businesses and green grocers to provide local employment opportunities. We need new condos to be backed with wider sidewalks that invite the community to walk and enjoy strolling through the shops and eateries. This will serve to enhance the multi-use trails and meadowway already in existence. Lastly, we need accountability for property management and landlords to make their tenants aware of city, park, and school bylaws. We need more outreach in our schools, community, and parks regarding these bylaws, and we need the city to enforce fines when excessive and repetitive offenses such as fireworks in park are known to occur. In closing, we ask that you continue to proactively engage in meaningful dialogue and consultation with resident networks like SUN, so we may create a collective vision for Scarborough that builds walkable, welcoming, green, and thriving neighborhoods that we call home.
Next up will be John from West Hill, after Allura.
Please make sure that you're right into the microphone.
I won't try.
Thank you. My name is Allura Moores. I'm the president of the Scarborough Rosewood Community Association. We represent residents living between Midland, Finch, Brimley, and McNichol. Our neighborhood is comprised of 1,500 plus single, duplex, and townhouse homes, and our association has been active for 36 years. We are looking for increased, similar to what we've heard before, we're looking for increased, improved, and safer access to resources for overall quality of life in our neighborhood. We believe that a thriving Scarborough is a connected Scarborough. So we would ask that there is better increased access to community resources and centers. There's significant development on the horizon, and the existing community centers are already at capacity. They are integral to a healthy population and provide a safe space for youth to go, for seniors to exercise, for people to connect and live healthy lives. Planning needs to be done to provide new recreation centers or expand the capacity of the existing ones and or incorporate public-private options in these developments. Without that, we just have homes with no community, and we need the community. The second thing we ask is increased connectivity. Connectivity in Scarborough is a barrier to better work, better resources, better overall happiness and health of the people living there. Residents from our neighborhoods often have to rely on a complicated web of travel involving many modes and taking a long time in their day. I know the 3-hour commute really affected how I engage with my family, and I think that that's a serious problem when you factor in your everyday, needs when you're trying to spend a lot of time getting to and from work or to and from activities. So it really does impact the family. Excuse me. So, for example, even just recently, we've had extremely cold weather, extremely bad snowstorms. I saw people out on the roads on scooters and bikes in literally the worst weather, -26 in a snowstorm. The only reason someone would be out on those modes of transportation is out of absolute necessity. And so we really need to be doing better to make sure that there's safe modes for them to travel and there's good, affordable options for people to be getting around so that they're not unsafely traveling in those temperatures and on those conditions. And including people of all ages. I mean, I saw seniors biking in those snowstorms. So we need to make sure that getting around Scarborough locally and to other options, for example, downtown, are done in an easier, connected, and safer way, making sure that there's better connectivity via the bike lanes and networks. As was mentioned, we have patchwork of networks that we absolutely need to connect. In our area of North Scarborough, it's extremely dangerous to go from any of the bike paths onto the major streets. So that's a barrier for our children and our families and people just going to their local grocery store or what have you to actually use those networks. Encourage and improve safe travel and parking restrictions, in particular around schools. We know that school zones are a serious problem pretty much all over Toronto. It's very unsafe and chaotic, and there absolutely has to be more done to protect our students going there and encouraging people to walk and travel safely to those areas as opposed to driving through. We want to support the building of higher transit options and connectivity to those options, making sure that we have easy ways to get to them. Right now, if you want to take higher transit, it's a long commute via bus or other ways. We want to continue to improve and prioritize the regularity of efficient bus routes, including finding ways, I already mentioned, including finding ways for people to get to the higher transit hubs during rush hours. Local opportunities to engage. I actually would like to thank Councillor Myers. I really appreciate that you have gone out into various areas of North Scarborough and actually met people where they're at, allowing people to connect with you in their local community. North Scarborough is a huge ward, and as is all of your wards, and I do really like that method where people can actually go and speak to you about their daily issues. That's an important equity aspect, and I think it's a great thing that you're doing to make sure that people have an opportunity, especially because they can't always be at something like this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And up after is Rhoda.
Just a note for all of the speakers, we'll be taking the photograph afterwards, so do not leave.
And I should say the fire exit's over there and out this door. Forgot about that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Thelma, and I am honored to be speaking on behalf of our president, Coach John, and of Westhill Community Association. Unfortunately, he's not able to be here, but I'm so honored to be speaking for him. Westhill is designated as a priority neighborhood. However, the level of multiple investment does not reflect the level of need. Westhill continues to experience elevated level of thief, robbery, and other shooting incidents. These patterns are directly connected to deeper structural issues, including unemployment, youth disengagement, and food insecurity. Recently, 1.6 million was announced for Scarborough Security Initiative, yet Westhill has not seen clearly traceable or proportional implementation of these funds within the neighborhood. If funding is announced and cannot be geographically tracked, accountability becomes unclear. High-rise and intensive development is increasing in and around West Hill, providing housing, provincial housing and legislation density was intended to expand housing supply while ensuring community depth adapt to growth. When density increased, infrastructure must increase alongside it, including youth programming, food security. West Hill is not currently experiencing reinvestment proportional to this intensification. West Hill has some of the highest food bank utilization rate in Scarborough. School nutrition depend on communities to rise. I know about this because I run the food bank at West Hill Community Support, and we get a lot of families coming daily for food. So the rise of food insecurity is rising daily. Hunger affects academic performance, youth stability, long-term economic mobility, and this has to be addressed as a structural issue, not a charitable afterthought. A significant portion of Scarborough community funding flows through intermediary agency. In some cases, alongside half allocated funding goes directly, not reaching grassroots organizations, serving residents. This reduces multiple implement, and this reduces measurable impact and weakness, and weakens the neighborhood delivery capacity. Our request publish neighborhood level reporting for Scarborough's safety and community investment, establish direct access to funding for resident-led organization in West Hill, tie down development approvals to major community reinvestment mechanism, increase targeted multiple support for school nutrition and local food infrastructure, form a collective working table between the councillors and West Hill leadership. West Hill does not lack capacity. West Hill lack equitable allocation. If equity is the goal, the numbers must reflect it. From Coach John of West Hill Association.
Thank you. You can tell this is homegrown, right? Everyone's coming out to talk, and that's a great job.
You did a good job.
Say hi to Coach John.
My name is Rhoda Potter, and I'm president of AGINCOURT Village Community Association. AVCA's boundaries are Kennedy to Midland and Finch to the CPR tracks. The original village of AGINCOURT from the 1800s is the heart of our community. As a community within an MTSA, and I'm sure you've all heard about those, and within a canyon of 30 to 45-story high-rise developments on both sides of Shepherd Avenue between Midland and the DVP, we have the following concerns. First of all, lack of infrastructure to service present and future planned population expansion. Let me elaborate on 3 aspects of that. Firstly, higher order transit. The north-south Stouffville train only runs hourly during the day and on weekends. It does run every 30 minutes in the early morning and in the afternoon. But you can't go south after, it only runs one way in the afternoon. Scarborough residents traveling east-west are confronted with congested TTC buses and traffic. The Shepherd East subway extension is drastically needed. It's only been discussed since 1986, and I have documentation of that. We also need for the people who live in Malvern and for the students at U of T Scarborough campus, the Eglinton East LRT. We need to be able to move around. I'm from Malvern. Thank you, Jennifer. We need to be able to move around Scarborough. Remember that the Scarborough subway extension only adds 3 subway stations to our already 3 subway stations. That's it. Next, I want to talk about, and people have mentioned, community centers and the lack thereof. Finding a member's room for us to hold an AGM each year is a daunting task. We have no outdoor city-operated skating rink, no outdoor pool, an indoor city pool that is totally overpopulated. It's not even in our ward, it's in Jamal's, but it's totally overpopulated. A small library that is oversubscribed, and few indoor areas for recreational activities or childcare, as was mentioned. Lastly, in the 3, I want to mention parks per capita. We're losing 30%. We'll be 30% per capita as densification happens. Next, I want to talk about city parking requirement and the zoning change. Let me elaborate. Lack of parking requirements with the new developments of condos, garden suites, 4plexes and 6plexes leave the parking to the developer. Yet Scarborough is an extensive geographical space with a desert of higher order transit. Parking for vehicles is needed. Thirdly, lack of parking at existing and planned transit stations. Let me elaborate. There is lack of parking at AGINCOURT GO Station, no new parking proposed at the new McCowan subway station, which is the end of the Danforth Bloor line, and reduction of parking at Kennedy and Warden. Residents are car or e-bike or e-scooter dependent because public transit TTC bus waits are long and often intermittent. Residents must choose public transit would choose public transit over driving if they had a place to park their car. And I just have 3 asks, and that's basically that our councillors work together and collaborate for all of the needs that are mentioned here. And I also want you to collaborate with municipal, provincial, and federal leaders to address the needs of Scarborough communities. Thank you.
And Jeff from Guildwood, come on up. In the meantime, Kathy from Centennial.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, councillors that are here, and staff representatives.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, that's not good. Is this good? Better? Practically eating it. Okay. My name is Kathy Rowe. I'm president of the Centennial Community Recreation Association, which is situated in southeast Scarborough. Like many communities across Scarborough, our neighborhood faces challenges with aging infrastructure, unreliable transit, and increasing crime. But today, I'm actually here to shine a light on a dangerous gray area in our housing system. Between multi-tenant housing and nursing homes are what we call unlicensed and inadequately licensed care homes. A single-family home in our neighborhood was rented out to house residents with physical and developmental disabilities. The neighbors only became aware of the nature of this operation after witnessing 2 consecutive days of multi-agency emergency responses. We later learned that 2 residents, including a man in his 20s, had passed away within 24 hours of each other. You can imagine the horror of looking out your window and seeing all the lights going 2 consecutive days of this, not knowing what was really going on in that house. Okay? Subsequent inspections revealed that the property did not comply with the fire safety standards required for congregate living. Despite housing residents with limited or no mobility, the home lacked basic wheelchair accessibility. A year and a half after the discovery of the operation, a fire broke out at the back of the house in the early morning hours. Fortunately, the next door neighbor was awake to notice the fire. They called 911. They woke up and evacuated the residents, including a ambulatory resident. We later learned that no staff had been on site during the night. The fire began in an obsolete hot tub that the Toronto Fire staff had instructed the owner of the property to disconnect. Had it not been for the neighbors' efforts, the outcome could have been catastrophic. Many lives could have been lost and the neighboring properties damaged. Unlicensed and inadequately licensed care homes are not unique to Centennial. They are operating across Scarborough. We must close the regulatory loopholes that allow operators to house vulnerable people without proper licensing or oversight or staffing. Furthermore, significant fines must be levied against these property owners who profit from these unsafe environments. So more needs to be done to prevent tragedies and protect some of the city's most vulnerable residents. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Next to come up is Russell from Heathwood, but Jeff from GUILDWOod.
Hello, councillors and honored representatives. My name is Jeff Guerra, president of the GUILDWOod Community Association, representing more than 3,400 households surrounding the GUILDWOod GO station. I understand how challenging your roles are, balancing local needs with directives from multiple levels of government, while safeguarding the well-being of the communities you serve. It's because of your work is so important that the collaboration between wards, Scarborough communities, and across all three orders of government is essential. Our concerns span 5 interconnected areas, many of which you've heard a lot about today, but housing, development, infrastructure, transit, and parking. None of these can be evaluated in isolation. The GVCA supports growth and supports transit-oriented communities, but cannot support policy and planning processes that ignore Scarborough's realities. The current GUILDWOod talk proposal, 6 towers between 30 and 60 stories, roughly 2,534 units, doesn't align with the surrounding community, city planning policies, or with Scarborough's limited infrastructure. GUILDWOod is not alone. There are 6 to 7 additional high-density projects already approved, under review, or proposed along the same short stretch of Kingston Road, spanning Cliffcrest, Highland Creek, West Hill communities, yet there's been no meaningful assessment of their collective impact on transit, on healthcare, on schools, on density even, on the roads and the parking. That's going to be felt by all of these communities. If the GUILDWOod proposal proceeds unchanged, it will further strain health and education systems already operating beyond capacity, undermine GO commuter access for years during construction, worsen Scarborough's already severe parking pressures, and create outsized height, shadow, and traffic impacts along long-standing low-rise neighborhoods. Scarborough cannot be planned as if it were downtown Toronto. We are not here to obstruct development, we're here to improve it. The GVCA has proposed a practical, achievable reset to the city and the Provincial Infrastructure Ontario Partnership, examples of which include remassing the site with appropriate tower height and placement, phased development based on real funded improvements to healthcare, school, transit, and utilities, delivering community benefits early, like including primary care clinics, childcare, a multi-use community center, and at least 20% long-term affordable housing, none of which is currently in the existing proposal. Guarantee no net loss GO commuter parking with credible interim solutions and adequate ratios, and improve active transportation access, especially safe pedestrian and cycling connections, and embedding a co-design process with residents before, not after, decisions are made. Parking in particular must be addressed. As Joy and many of my other peers here have said, in Scarborough, where transit gaps remain significant, parking is a necessity, not a luxury. We need coordinated Scarborough-specific policy revisions and approaches until such a point as transit is adequately funded and built. Adding 10,000 residents with no accountability for parking or transit considerations that are actually funded is not an answer. We need urgent action on multiplexes and rooming houses. Policies intended to improve safety and accountability have failed in Scarborough GUILDWOod with 0 licensed rooming houses and some properties with dozens of repeated violations, reports, and investigations. Enforcement is inconsistent and both tenants and neighborhoods are suffering. We need a plan and coordinated political action to close these gaps in enforcement in partnership with the province. Scarborough has long been under-resourced and underrepresented in infrastructure planning. We are asking you, our councillors, as well as our MPPs and MPs, to come together as a unified Scarborough leadership table and chart a path that reflects the realities of our communities. Scarborough is proud, diverse, and growing. We deserve the planning, the infrastructure, and enforcement that match the scale of our needs. Let today mark the beginning of a new chapter, Scarborough speaking with one voice for fair treatment, smart growth, and a livable future. And thank you, Ron and company, for putting us all together.
Thank you, Jeff from GUILDWOOD. So we got Russell and Naomi coming up next after. And we have Russell from HEATHWOOD.
Good evening. I represent the HEATHWOOD Ratepayers Association.
Right into the mic, please. Yep. Right into the mic.
And we cover the area from Steeles to McNichol and Kennedy to Birchmount within the Ward 22. My major problem, our major problem is with enforcement. We've got e-bikes, hundreds of them every day in the neighborhood, right through our community, racing along at 30 to 40 kilometers an hour. We need someone to take care of it, enforce the law, and charge them. Right now, there's nothing to identify any of them. They can injure somebody and get away, and no one can go back because there's no way to identify who they are, like a car or a motorcycle where there's a license plate. So we're looking for someone, the police or whoever, to enforce that law. But they shouldn't be riding around at 30, 40 kilometers down the sidewalks. The next one is, again, enforcement. We had a kid who was killed by cars parking on the street in no parking zones, and nobody can see them crossing the street. So we had a kid who died there. We've had no parking, no stopping signs put up, and we've never had anyone come in and enforce that during school hours. We've had the police come in after hours, not within the 3 to 4 when the kids are out, or the 8 to 9 when the kids are going into school. We need someone to do that and enforce it. On the other hand, when we go to the police, they say, oh, we don't have people. There's no one available. We go to the parking authority and they say, that's not our problem. It's the police problem. So now we're stuck between a rock and a hard spot. We need someone to take care of that. The next one is we need the Shepherd line. We cannot have an LRT. We need the Shepherd subway. Because when we travel, when I get on the bus, it takes me an hour to 2 hours to get downtown. Whereas if the Shepherd subway was built there, all I have to go down is to Shepherd, take the subway, and we're away. Right now, we need that Shepherd subway. We've been fighting with the provincial government. We need all the councillors to get back and back us up. Because right now in Scarborough, no one's representing us really well with the downtown area, with all the governments in the provincial area. That is a necessity. The other thing is, I don't know what happened to our snow clearing. It's always been, every year, it never fails. The snow clearing does not come up to standard. For the last 5 years, they've gone to a new contractor. I don't think they know what they're doing, but they have to come back 2 and 3 times, and I guess they get paid extra for that. So that's money that the city is losing. So why did we change? Did we go with the lowest bidder? Or did we go with someone who was doing a good job? They're not. Right now, they're not doing a good job. That's all I have to say. And I need the councillors to push that within the city. Thank you.
And Carol's up after, and Naomi from Metrogate.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, councillors, observers, Scarborough residents. My name is Naomi Barbero, and I am a representative of the Metrogate community. I am here today to speak on the importance and need for much-needed access and infrastructure.
Where is Metrogate? Just to give it.
Kennedy and 401.
Okay.
Metrogate is an enclosed community consisting of 9 high-rise condominiums, 70 townhomes, and over 5,000 residents. The community is landlocked, with the CN Rail to the north, Metrolink Rail to the east, 401 to the south, and just one way in and out to the west. Accidents on the street and intersection causes heavy congestion and extreme delays within the community. Most importantly, having only one access point is a big community safety concern. Another community that was surrounded by a railway was the Lac Mégantic community in Quebec. The Lac Mégantic train derailment in 2013 is a stark reminder of what happens when the need for proper infrastructure is ignored. A 1970s proposal to reroute the line to bypass downtown Lac Mégantic was never implemented because of cost. This costly decision led to one of the deadliest rail accidents in Canadian history. Learn from history. The death toll in Lac Mégantic was 47 in a population of 5,900. The Metrogate community is similar in population, but much more densely concentrated. The last public consultation for the creation of a new street and multi-purpose trail was in 2022. Another community update on design progress is not expected until 2027. When will the actual construction take place? Housing developments projects continue to pop up around the community, yet access and infrastructure remain stagnant. I am asking that you expedite the creation of the new street and multi-purpose trail. Create another access point to allow Metrogate residents to get in and out of their community safely. Please, do not let history repeat itself. Thank you for your time and joining us this evening.
Thanks, Naomi. And after Carol is Susan from Pleasantview.
Thanks, Ron. Hi, everybody. Hi, councillors. Thanks for coming. 2025 was a really interesting year with development really taking a center stage in a huge way. And so I'd like to kind of share my perspective. I'm Carol Baker. I live in Scarborough Centre, Ward 21. And I was very involved, very engaged in the EHON initiative, Expanded Housing Options for Neighborhoods, right? Now, in being involved in that, there was something missing, and what was missing for me was a way to talk to Scarborough councillors directly, because by the time I found out about EHON, the way to engage was to participate in letter writing campaigns and to depute at the Planning and Housing Committee. And I thank Sun for, educating me and a lot of other people as to how to do that. And it's pretty intimidating and it's pretty scary. I would have liked to have been able to talk to the Scarborough councillors. a lot of people deputed. A lot of letters were written and a lot of people deputed. But as I said in my deputation, which was kind of not just about EHON, but about the fact that the transparency the city has in distributing all their studies and reports, and just the incredible amount of information that they put out about these things, basically telling people what they've decided, right? Yeah. And convincing us that what they've decided is right. Now that feeds into putting us residents, homeowners, in a position where we have to react. So I felt like it was a reaction, not a consultation or a discussion, it was a reaction. And I felt like it was adversarial. And this to me is not what municipal politics should be. So, in my mind, why maybe EHON came before Scarborough Community Council, I don't know. But what is that? What we're asking for, what I'm hearing people asking for, what Ron asked for at the very beginning, is Scarborough councillors to work together and collaborate, as we're doing, as we have come together and been doing. We don't all agree on everything. We have different priorities for our neighborhoods, and we know that the councillors have their own wards. But what I saw happen is, I saw the sixplexes motion from the Planning and Housing Committee be amended at City Council so that Scarborough is not, there are no sixplexes in Scarborough except for one ward allowed. However, the garden suites and the fourplexes, that happened before I even knew what EHON was. And so all of the and then there was the neighborhood retail and that motion that was also amended at City Council, largely because of input from the Scarborough residents. But why couldn't we give that input to the Scarborough councillors? Why couldn't we discuss it? Why is it happening at City Council? So I think we need a mechanism for that, and we have Scarborough Community Council, where I know you talk about stop signs and street lights and crosswalks and all that stuff. Like, can we have a dialogue? Can we have a way of talking to you instead of having to go to the city, write letters to the city folks, and go to Planning and Housing Committee? And, this is really quite onerous, and I think that this is really what we're looking for our elected officials to do, is to represent us, to advocate for us, to protect our rights. And it's not about, it's about protecting Scarborough neighborhoods. My priority is not people who don't live here. But it seems to be the city's priority is to accommodate people who don't live here, instead of people who have built communities and worked to build these neighborhoods and communities, and the city wants to come in and just destroy them as of right. And we have no rights. That's my takeaway from all my engagement in 2025, and I really hope that there's some suggestions for how we can change this dynamic, because it's really not very productive. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol from Midland Park. Technical difficulty here? No. No? Okay. Sorry, this is Susan from Pleasantview, and then after is Marina and Tanya. Thanks.
My name is Susan Wakeett, and I'm the president of Pleasantview Association,
speak
but I'm
closer.
from North York.
There you go.
So why am I here today? I'm here because something really important is happening at the corner of Victoria Park and Shepherd, and the people most affected by it are your constituents. At that intersection sits a 100-acre employment district. It's huge. It's employing 18,000 people right now. It's the largest employment piece of land outside of the downtown core. But here's the part that I really want you to hear. 1/3 of those workers, about 6,000 of them, they are commuting in from Scarborough. They're your constituents. Another third don't even live in the city of Toronto. They're coming in by cars outside of the city. And the balance of them are sort of scattered throughout the city. There's no single councillor that represents any large group. You are the only council group that represents a large concentrated share of the workforce from that entire business park. But the problem is the future of the employment land is being shaped through North York Community Council. It's not by the councillors whose residents on these jobs that rely on the jobs the most. Your constituents are depending on two very basic things: being able to get to work, and for those jobs still being there now and also in the future. In 2018, Council approved the Consumers Next secondary plan. It was really forward-thinking. The goal was clear as well: attract more employers and grow good local jobs. So 7 years later, we have not seen that employment vision advance at all. And what we have seen instead is a movement in the opposite direction. Early last year, early 2025, right inside the core employment area, City Council gave approval for the first land conversion into mixed residential. That opened the floodgates. By December, we've got 6 more applications are now filed. And this is where the concern deepens. Provincial policy does allow municipalities to protect strategic employment lands where there is a clear long-term economic role. But in this case, the current approach appears to be leaning toward conversions. And it's in part to meet the city's very real affordable housing pressures. But when employment lands are used to solve today's housing problems, you're just creating tomorrow's jobs problems. Once the employment land is converted, you're never, ever going to get that back. Big employers like Consumers Gas, Porsche, Intact Insurance, these aren't theoretical. These are real, stable paychecks for your residents today. If this employment base erodes over time, your constituents are going to feel it first. Fewer local opportunities and increased pressures to leave the city for work. And at the same time, we're hoping for an investment in the Shepherd subway extension. That's an investment that only pays off if people still have accessible jobs to travel to. So for 7 years, our association, we have shown up, deputations, meetings, letter writing, just to bring focus back on the long-term perspective here, and that simply is eroding each year. So today, I'm here asking you, please, take ownership of this issue for your constituents. Help ensure this employment district is protected and properly activated, just as council originally had intended it to be in the secondary plan. If you engage, we think we can be a helpful resource. You know, you need a mechanism that you can identify North York motions when your vote is impacting the business park. And you also need a discussion with the province, which I can explain at some point later if you like. If we get this wrong now, it's your residents that are being the ones paying for it later. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll connect again in the future.
Thank you, Susan. Just to understand, Pleasantview is on both sides of Victoria Park. I referee hockey at the Pleasantview Arena in Deeper. So this is what I was saying about we have boundaries for electoral parks. This is what is an important part of it when Susan approached us in Sun and said, this is not about just your neighborhood, it's about caring for others. And that's why we're here today too, is we're caring. And thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
And now we have, Cliff Crest.
Thank you.
And next is Peter.
Thank you for showing up tonight to hear us all. Marina and I are here tonight on behalf of the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. We echo the many concerns that are shared tonight by other community members. The city has been moving at lightning pace to rezone large portions of our neighborhoods without properly consulting with residents and without considering scale, transition, and infrastructure with no data to demonstrate the impacts of the changes. No cumulative impact studies for neighboring developments, poor transit, illegal parking, parking on yards, illegal extensions of driveways by needs for the parking, and the elimination of minimum parking requirements. Blockbusting and rampant spread of illegal rooming houses with no impact from the new MTH bylaw, and that is not working. Lack of enforcement by parking enforcement, MLS, and urban forestry. Destruction of employment in Scarborough and strip malls for redevelopment, left vacant for years or even decades.
Councillors, you have all heard one size does not fit all. You may have even said it yourselves. Tonight I'm going to focus on one example of one size does not fit all that is having tremendous impact that we believe can be fixed and would be an achievable quick win if, and only if, our Scarborough councillors will look at bringing this forward together. Effective 2022, the city in one motion has created a parking crisis on our Scarborough streets when it approved the elimination of minimum parking requirements for new developments. Parking on our streets has never been a concern in the past, as existing homes and buildings were designed to address standard requirements. Transit does not exist throughout our internal neighborhoods or suburbs. It is not a viable option to get everywhere that is needed. Our transit simply is not an effective or efficient mode of transport in Scarborough. A car is a necessity to get around, which makes the need for parking a necessity also. Parking is a right for all Scarborough residents, especially for families with small children, the growing demographic of elderly, and for those who are differently abled. Let's look forward. The single-family home that required 2 cars that became a rooming house with 6 cars will need much more with as of right 4-plex and garden suite. Where will these many new residents park if new developments are not required to provide parking? Councillors, if we don't look to change things now, we will find ourselves in more than just a parking crisis. It will become an endless bylaw and parking enforcement crisis where frustrated and angry residents will turn to 311 for complaint resolution that will never happen. As you heard from all in attendance tonight, there is a long list of items that need attention. But please consider this one quick win for Scarborough. We ask that our Scarborough councillors work together. Pause the elimination of minimum parking requirements for new developments in Scarborough until better transit is introduced. And 2, there should be a bylaw that prevents new developments from petitioning for street parking permits for new condo, townhomes, and multiplex developments. These changes will help pause the parking crisis in Scarborough. And our wish is for this change to take place before the upcoming election. We look forward to hearing back from you all on how we can support you in achieving this quick win and change for Scarborough, as well as working with you to bring more good things to Scarborough. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya and Marina. And up after Peter is Kurt from West Rouge. Peter from Scarborough Golf Club.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Thatch, and I've lived in Scarborough for a third of a century, and I'm not going to move this microphone from here. Councillors, I too wholeheartedly agree with Marina and all the other speakers who believe that we should be focusing first on parking, crisis and reinstating minimum parking standards for those parts of Scarborough that are underserviced by public transit. However, as a topic for a future meeting, I believe we should be reviewing road classification as it relates to minor arterials and collectors. I believe this is important. We believe that this is important because Toronto's road classification generally excludes collectors from EHON. From major streets, the definition, and the EHON initiative. For the majority of minor arterials in Scarborough, this classification is fine because we have a number of mixed-use minor arterial streets that are consisting of commercial, industrial, and residential properties. However, there are a small portion of streets in Scarborough that are 100% residential, some of them as little as 9.6 meters in width, that we believe should be reclassified as collectors. The city has already done that. From an equity lens, does it make any sense that major portions of Gerrard Street East are classified as collectors and therefore not part, as I understand it, of EHON initiatives, but we have streets like Huntingwood, like parts of Scarborough Golf Club, actually I was informed today that's been excluded, but parts of McCowan, Huntingwood, I believe parts of Meadowvale, that are subject to the EHON initiatives because of their classification, because the planners don't seem to know how to come east of the Don Valley. So fundamentally, councillors, I believe that we need to get the quick hit. I think this is an achievable ask for you to look at parking. I'd be really interested to see if you're not interested in it. I'd like to hear the rationale. But however, for a future meeting, let's think about looking at road classification. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Peter, for Scarborough Golf Club. Next we have Kurt from West Rouge, and Paul is coming up next from CD Farquharson. The mic's yours.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, good evening, councillors and staff observers.
Up there, yeah.
Okay. My name is Kirk O'Brien. I'm speaking on behalf of the West Rouge Community Association. We have over 3,000 homes within our boundaries. West Rouge is often described as a low-crime, stable neighborhood, and that is largely true. But stability does not mean immunity. Even in relatively stable communities, the way change is introduced, coordinated, and communicated has real impact on trust, safety perception, and community cohesion. What West Rouge is experiencing today is not unique. It reflects a broader Scarborough pattern. Over the past 6 months, residents have been absorbing multiple overlapping changes. The transit area zoning, expansion of multi-tenant housing frameworks, cycling implementation, new retail permissions in neighborhoods, and discussion around intensified use of public lands. Each initiative may have merit individually, but communities are experiencing them together, often without clear sequencing, neighborhood-level explanation, or visible enforcement readiness. The result is confusion, resistance, and a growing sense that change is happening to communities rather than with them. I want to briefly reference the transit-oriented communities. While GUILDWOOD is often discussed as a local matter, from a West Rouge perspective, it represents something larger. How Scarborough approaches the GUILDWOOD GO TOC will set expectations for other GO Stations communities, including Rouge Hill. We support housing near transit. The question is whether TOCs in Scarborough are approached with adequate attention to infrastructure capacity, growth sequencing, and neighborhood context. If system impacts healthcare access, school capacity, road access, emergency response are treated as out of scope now, those assumptions will follow future communities. From our perspective, there are three connected issues that rise to the surface. First, the cumulative impact without coordination. Development and land use changes are stacking faster than infrastructure, parking management, and enforcement capacity, more than they can realistically keep up. Residents are not opposing growth. We've heard that tonight. They are reacting to growth that feels unmanaged. Second, the enforcement and safety gaps. Policies exist, but residents experiencing uneven follow-through. A clear example is West Rouge's repeated car thefts at the GO train parking lots. In a very short period this year, multiple vehicles were stolen from what should be a secure community infrastructure. When residents see transit intensification discussions on one hand, but they see basic security gaps at existing stations on the other, it reinforces the perception that growth planning is moving faster than operational readiness. Third is communication. When residents do not understand what is changing, why it is happening, or what safeguards are in place, uncertainty fills the gap. And uncertainty amplifies rumors, resistance, and even stable neighborhoods. At West Rouge Community, we have tried to address this differently. Over the past year, we have focused on structured, plain language communication, encouraging responsible reporting, improving use of 311, and constructively working with the police partners. The outcome has been better residential behavior and more productive engagement. That experience tells us something important. Communities can be a force multiplier, but only when the city seems systems are aligned and responsive. So tonight, we're not asking for more studies. We're asking for Scarborough Council to work together and without community leaders through this forum. I'm going to cut it short because of the time constraints, but again, I'll repeat this, right? If Scarborough can get this right together, it becomes a model, not just for Toronto, but for other cities and how they manage change within the communities rather than around them. If we treat Scarborough as a system rather than 6 silos, we can turn friction into alignment and change into confidence. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. After Paula is Larry from SCRO. Paula from CD Ferguson.
I am. Good evening. I'm Paula Smith-Naden. I'm the president of the CD Ferguson Community Association. Our boundaries are Midland to the west, Shepherd Avenue to the north, McCowan to the east, and the 401 to the south. The CDFCA was established in 1972 and has been active in the community ever since. Our shared concerns certainly include infrastructure, high-level transit. Congratulations on getting the crosstown open. We're all very grateful. By all accounts, it has delivered on the promise of quick, reliable transit across Midtown Toronto. The crosstown project does, however, there needs to be an inquiry to determine best practices moving forward so future projects can be built on time and on budget. Let's build on that success by extending the rail line throughout Scarborough with the Eglinton East LRT. This project needs to be passed and funds committed by council. Another link in the subway chain is the Shepherd East subway extension. We clearly need the subway to connect between Don Mills and McCowan and Shepherd. The AGINCOURT GO station is very well used, and we look forward to two-way all-day service on the Stouffville line. Currently, as Rhoda mentioned, trains run hourly and only in one direction during the rush hours. Next up is Parks and Rec facilities. Some of this will be very familiar because Rhoda has mentioned many of these topics already, but Parks and Rec facilities, added recreation facilities need to be part of the urban plan, along with housing strategy for increased density. AGINCOURT Rec Center is one of the busiest in the city. Too few spaces available and increased density will negatively impact the quality of life for residents. We'd also like to see more outdoor recreation facilities, including city-operated skating rinks, pools, tennis and pickleball courts, and parks and walking trails with washroom facilities. Green spaces. With the proposed densification, green spaces are disappearing. We need dedicated green spaces large enough to meet the needs of the population and to also maintain wildlife corridors throughout Scarborough. Lack of parking. We've heard this quite a bit this evening, actually. There's a lack of parking at the AGINCOURT GO station, no parking planned in the McCowan Shepherd subway station, and reduced parking at Kennedy, Warden, and Victoria Park stations. Accessibility could be maintained with multi-level parking garages while still reducing the surface footprint for parking and freeing up land for more housing. Lack of parking is an accessibility issue. We're at risk of developing an ableist system. The elevator at Kennedy Station between the GO platform and the TTC level has been out of service since 2019. The lack of escalators at Don Mills is a barrier to use, with long flights of stairs and one small elevator for access. Small changes can make a big impact. New stations need to be designed for all users, not just the most fit and able. Lastly, cycling and walking infrastructure. We ask that you support increased cycling infrastructure throughout Scarborough. I'm glad to see the separated bike lanes added to Port Union on the boulevards. That's amazing. But we need more thoughtful cycling infrastructure like this, as well as connections between cycling lanes so users aren't forced onto roadways to make connections. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Thank you for your time.
And next is Larry from SCRO. Larry.
Thanks, Ron. Greetings, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight, and to our councillors for some one-stop shopping about community concerns in Scarborough at a neighborhood level. My name is Larry Watmore, and I'm here to speak tonight on behalf of the Scarborough Community Renewal Organization. Now, SCRO is not a residents association, so in that respect, we're different from everything you've heard so far. Our focus is on Scarborough as a whole. And our mission is to connect, promote, and renew Scarborough so Scarborough can be strong and prosperous, and so that we all have a sense of civic pride in the place we've chosen to call home. Here are the big projects that SCRO is working on at the moment. The Eglinton East LRT. We are all pleased that the Eglinton Crosstown is finally open, and it appears to be working, which is great. But our work is not yet done. Eastern Scarborough is starved for higher order public transit, including U of T Scarborough and Malvern. The proposed Eglinton East LRT, which should really be called the Scarborough LRT, because only a small portion of it is along Eglinton, is a bold initiative to address this. And the city is doing its part, thank you. We are pleased that Council previously allocated $1.2 billion for design work on this project, which is now in progress. But the total project cost is likely to be closer to $5 billion. So we need the federal and provincial governments to get on board, and they've been quiet so far. SCRO is working on this now, quietly for the moment, louder later. We will want to coordinate our advocacy efforts with you, our councillors, and with our residents' associations. The Scarborough LRT Linear Park. Our beloved Scarborough RT is no more. We are grateful that Council found the budget room to convert this right-of-way into an express bus route, and that construction is ahead of schedule. We desperately need the additional capacity this route will provide while we wait for the completion of the Scarborough subway extension. Once that happens, we'll have an opportunity to reimagine this right-of-way for a public realm benefit for all of Scarborough. SCRO is now working with U of T Scarborough and other stakeholders on an inspiring vision for this public asset. And in the coming weeks, members of the planning team, including me, will wish to reach out to all of you for a deeper conversation about this, about the work being done so far, and to address any concerns you may have. A Scarborough-focused mayoral election debate. Many of you will recall that SCRO organized a debate for the mayoral by-election. We're doing it again this fall. U of T Scarborough is on board once again. We are now in discussions with City TV about moderating and broadcasting the debate once again, and it looks like they're going to be on board too, as will Tamil 1. We'll also be working with our Scarborough community partners on this once again, as we did last time, including Scarborough, United Neighborhoods, and AXA. Preservation of employment lands. 2 weeks ago, the city's Economic Development Department and planning teams hosted an employment lands forum at Centennial College. Councillor Carroll and Deputy Mayor Ainsley were there for the full day, which was great to see. SCRO worked with city staff to help make this happen, and we were thrilled it was held in Scarborough because our employment lands are at risk here. We need to find ways to keep them, even as housing pressures exert an outsized influence on planning policies. And finally, the Scarborough Walk of Fame. SCRO's highest profile program. Our next induction ceremony takes place on April 15th at Scarborough Town Centre. I believe our chair, Glenda Bearmaker, has been in touch with each of you about this. I hope that you may be able to attend this event. Our inductees have been selected, and we'll be issuing a press release probably next week about that. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry. So now's the time to complete the speaker portion. We've done that, and now we have the time for our councillors who wish to speak. You have up to 4 minutes, like everybody here. So it's up to you if you want to speak. Just let me know. Start off with Councillor Candible.
Oh, okay.
Well,
alrighty.
That counted.
Thanks for being here.
Clock's running.
It felt therapeutic hearing many of the comments and experiences you've shared. They've been similar to my own in the 2 years and now 2 months as the councillor for Scarborough Southwest. I want to thank Ron and the entire Sun team and all the RAs for coming out and putting this in my time as a councillor and before that as a school trustee and as an active citizen, don't remember this. So we may be going back to the 80s when such a cohort of residents associations in Scarborough came together. So kudos, I think, this, right. It gives me a lot of hope to where my daughter and my son are growing up, right? Scarborough, which gave my family so much dignity, life, and identity as when we came here as a refugee family in the 80s, right? We owed great debt, not just to Canada, but particularly to Scarborough, because I don't have to belabor everyone here how well run the city of Scarborough was. It was such a beacon to so many municipalities around Ontario. They looked to Scarborough, whether it was the Board of Education or the municipality, to the point where the Queen of England, no less, in 1952, came to Scarborough to open the Golden Mile. Oliver Crockford, who was the mayor at the time, had the vision, which is lacking, I won't name names, but broadly, and since amalgamation, to buy land from the federal government and invest and attract GM, Thermos, Honeywell, the list goes on, the number of multinational corporations who came in, invested, and built amazing economic opportunities that created such middle-class prosperity that everyone came to Scarborough to live. So I think it's important to remember that history. And we saw the peak in the 70s with the building of the Scarborough Civic Center, which I think, you know, bias aside, the most iconic Moriyama building in this city. It actually just period. It's a beautiful testament to when cities have vision. And of course, we had the Queen open up the Civic Center, and we saw Terry Fox as well. And Scarborough has always had that potential, that vibrancy to attract such vibrancy. And I saw it last Saturday night, just 2 nights ago, at the fundraiser for the Scarborough Shooting Stars. So for those of you who aren't aware, we've got our own elite basketball team at the Pan Am Center. And what struck me, you know, seeing the number of you know, high-profile people, including our Canadian gold medalist Andre DeGrasse, put to rest what Markham people, you know, claim him, that he grew up in Scarborough. He's a Scarborough product. But we've seen from Jim Carrey to Mike Myers to Lily Singh, The Weeknd, the #1 streaming artist of all time. So much talent coming out of here, and I see the sign. So if you could maybe perhaps give me a little wiggle room. Okay. These, you know, what it reminds me of is the amount of talent and ability that can come out of a group like what we're seeing today. I won't get into the details of, many of you know, especially from my ward, the challenges we've had with the points listed. But I think what you've set today is the tone that I know all of us here and our colleagues have received, that invitation to be united, to work in Scarborough's interest. And there's always that tension between the regional interest and the local interest. But I think this is very important. A good, active civic democracy holds us to account through forums like this. And I'll leave it with just, you know, that invitation to hold us to account, to come united. And I think it was Jeff maybe who said, speaking as one voice. I think that's paramount for how our trajectory in this important year is formed. Because there's tremendous potential for how we can actually have our interests protected and advanced. And I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there's Q&A.
Thanks, Barbie. Mel, would you like to say a few words? It's up to you guys. Your councillors, I guess.
Ron, good evening, everyone. My name is Jamal Myers, and I am the City Councillor for Scarborough North, as well as Chair of the Toronto Transit Commission. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces and to be here with my colleagues and staff members from the other councillors' offices. Here is Team Scarborough. So I've been vigorously taking mental notes, and Cameron has been taking physical notes on sort of the core themes that I've been hearing. And one I keep hearing is a lack of consultation in terms of how residents are engaged and how residents can be part of the change. Having been on the Planning and Housing Committee now for 3 years, as well as chair of the TTC, I can say, and we can all see this, the city is changing. The city will change. It's just a matter of what type of change will happen and how we will be involved with the change. There have been several different approaches in terms of how we react to the change. I can just talk about what I've done in my own ward. So many of you know, I initiated the Six-Flex pilot in my ward. And I did that in a very deliberate way, in that I recognized that there was a problem. My ward, the population has consistently dropped. There is underinvestment in schools, there is underinvestment in rec centers, there are underinvestments in parks. And part of the reason consistently I'm told is, well, your population is dropping. Why are we gonna invest here versus the places where it's growing? So one of the things we really looked for was not just what was the policy, but how could we engage residents in the policy. And I think that's really been one of the successes of the problem, the policy. Doesn't mean that everyone necessarily has to agree with it, but everyone had an opportunity to have their voice heard and considered. So we, was very explicit when I was running. This is what I was running on. I put it in my campaign literature. We also had a community meeting that went, a notification went out to all the residents. We had a community meeting. We had another community consultation. We had an opportunity for people to go directly to city staff with questions. We actually had a city team dedicated to answering questions. And we were honest when we didn't have the answers. Some things we haven't figured out yet. So I don't know how you're gonna get 6 cars parked everywhere. I honestly don't know. We're figuring it out as we go, and obviously we're not dealing with the deluge of 6-plex applications, so it's slow and steady. But I think we have to be honest in terms of the community is going to change. Things that maybe were taboo, such as rooming houses, are here to stay. Unless these people are not going anywhere. Rooming houses, whether it's encampments, whether it's other problems that maybe that we didn't, we never had to think about where to park in Scarborough. These are all difficult conversations that we have to have. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to just to agree with everything that everyone says. However, I think it's incumbent upon us, and I think forums like this are particularly powerful in that they get us all in the room talking to one another to help build some sort of consensus, or even just to sort of understand what are the different pressures in different parts of the community, and it helps us as councillors better advocate for our communities, especially on those sort of regional issues that we all sort of are in broad alignment with. I think we can all say, I don't want to speak for anybody, I think we all agree that there's a problem with no parking minimums and the sort of the spillover it affects it creates in development. And that's whether you support intensification or not, everybody sees the problem. Thank you. So I think those are all things that we can look at working at together. But I also think there are really exciting initiatives that are happening. Larry brought one up, the Scarborough Linear Park. This isn't something that is theoretical. This is something that's happening right now. And we do have a municipal election coming up. And Scarborough is going to decide who is the next mayor of Toronto. It's in all the polls, and I think it's really incumbent upon us as community leaders to really come with a few clear asks in terms of what we want in the next mayor to commit to, and what are we going to hold them accountable for actually delivering. Whether that's the linear park, whether that's better, more rapid transit, more buses, whether that's progress on the Eglinton East LRT. These are all important community initiatives, but I think it's really incumbent upon us to really be clear in terms of what do we think is going to have the greatest impact for our neighbors, our friends, in terms of making sure that Scarborough is positioned well for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jamel. Nathan Chan, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today, and thank you Ron and all the people from SUN for organizing this, and thanks to all the Residents Association who are here. It was a privilege to listen to all of your concerns today. I have 6 neighborhoods, and out of 6, I'm glad to say 5 of them are represented here, and I belong to the 6th one, so we are all represented. So it's good to see such active participation from the neighborhood associations, and I've been in regular conversations with all of them in my ward. So, but it was important for me to hear from other associations in Scarborough, and I think that's the benefit of coming together, because we make decisions in the interest of the region, in the interest of the city. And I think, regardless of whether you're left, right, or center, or which color you like in political parties, most Scarborough residents agree that we don't get the fair share. Most Scarborough residents understand that we get the bad end of the stick. And it's not a perception. Sometimes people think it's a perception, but that's the reality. And sometimes we ask questions at the City Hall to say, what percentage does this come to Scarborough? How many of them are coming into Scarborough? And for people who are outside Scarborough, they tend to think of Scarborough as one neighborhood. And it is 25% of the population, 1/3 of the landmass, and we have to often remind that is the reality of the scale of investment that we are asking for, and that is a constant struggle for us. And so the more united we are, the more that we can actively push that narrative. We need a fair share based on the size, based on the need, and beyond the size, because when you talk about equitable distribution, you're not only balancing the size proportionately, you're making up for the lack of investment over time. So it will have to be much greater than that. So it's an important consideration for us, and I'm glad we are having this conversation. I don't want to go into each of the things, and I do think that we do have a challenge. I like the Scarborough, instead of Eklund and East Alati, calling it Scarborough. That may unify us to push for it together as well, because it is not really Eklund. It's a small stretch for Eklund and Eastman. The rest of it is actually on Morningside and other places that we will be able to do. And I do think that it presents us. Don't get me wrong. Even within all of these presentations today, there were difference of opinions if you read between lines, and that's okay to have. I think we have to have that conversation to come up with solutions together. And things change. Things change, and different needs exist for different neighborhoods. I have 6, and I go from Steeles down to the lake, and there are lots of differences. But I do think that we have to come together to have more discussion. And going back to Carol's point, we need to empower the Scarborough Community Council and other places to have much more deeper conversation about the regional needs than what we are afforded to. And because otherwise there will be separation-related movement in the coming years to kind of separate out. But I do think that autonomy and that delegation of authority has to be more empowering. So I do think that, I was one of those people who pushed for the subway extension, and, where there was debates about whether 3 stops are or, multiple stops. I do think we need to have a mix of different things, and I think the subway extension, both on Shepherd as well as what's happening, is critical. And we need to keep asking for that and not have others determine what's best for us. And finally, I think as I conclude, we heard parking, we heard service delivery, we had respect for secondary plans and other things. Enforcement, I do think that there is a bigger challenge around how much enforcement and how much support we get in terms of service. The last thing I'll say is that I've always been telling city staff, don't go delivering a standard of care, standard of service based on how many people call and complain. It has to be the same for every part of the city. If you have a region that doesn't call, doesn't mean the standard has to be less. So we can react to calls coming through. And that's part of the reason we say, Scarborough calls are not coming as much, doesn't mean Scarborough deserves less service. You need to be able to convince me that every part of the city gets the same service, regardless of how many people are calling. Until that time comes, we will be working hard. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes, and it's now on me. Okay.
Q&A.
4 minutes.
No Q&As, there's no debates, there's no decision-making, just talking. Okay, so closing comments. Thank you to everyone who's spoken. We know that our councillors were listening and have confidence that our councillors will act on the issues presented. There were many various topics and common concerns expressed. The city process and communication at all levels, city, committee, and council, needs improvements and needs to collaborate by educating councillors and residents on topics which will change the character of our neighborhoods. Our councillors have the tools to leverage the power to vote by sharing more information quickly to their constituents electronically with weekly updates, upcoming motions, leveraging surveys and polls, and more frequent hybrid town halls so everyone has access. The community meeting should also focus on listening to constituents and taking it back to the other Scarborough City councillors for more meaningful discussion, and from our perspective would be valuable. Our city staff make recommendations which councillors need to vote on. Our ask is to see the supporting data well in advance. We're counting on our councillors to ask tough questions or for the studies, insist on information so that informed decisions can be made, and then please share this information with your constituents as soon as possible so they can support you in bringing the best possible outcome for Scarborough. Ask, how is this good for the city and Scarborough? A quick mention in the elephant in the room. We are preparing for the upcoming municipal election in October. This is a critical part of our democratic process. The Sun will be working with resident community groups to share candidates' information such as the bios, flashcards with our written Q&As, and promote recorded events such as candidates' marketplaces, forums, and one-on-one candidate Q&A. So every voter will have access to information before they vote. There will be no excuses not to vote. On that note, we will remain hopeful that the views expressed tonight will be considered by all Scarborough councillors, supporting our Scarborough voices and making our Scarborough stronger in a special, safe place to live, work, and play. On behalf of SUN, and thanks to AGINCOURT Community Services and SCAN and SCRO for providing access to the public forum, and to our councillors and residents for your continued support, especially your Scarborough voices. Thank you. Thank you. Just,